Hey guys, it's Flip, and today I'm going to show you how to replace the carburetor, fuel lines, filters, and spark plug on a Stihl FS45 string trimmer. Alright, so I picked this up off the curb. Somebody was throwing it away. It doesn't run. So first of all, what should your steps be when you're trying to get a gas string trimmer running that won't start? First of all, just check the gas. Try some new gas. If it has old gas, the gas could have broken down in here. Secondly, replace the spark plug. You can clean these, but these are cheap enough that I just replace them, and this came with the kit that I got. Then you can replace the air filter. Again, you can clean those, but this came with the kit, so I'm just replacing it. Next is you can check the spark arrestor screen and clean that if needed, or just try starting it with it out. Just be aware that that can send some sparks flying out, so just be careful you don't light some dry grass on fire. But this is the culprit a lot of the times. You'll get carbon buildup on there and it can choke the airflow. And then lastly is replace the carb. Again, you can clean these, but in my opinion, it's just not worth the time or money to do this. I have 3 jobs, so I'm not cleaning carbs. I just replace them. Aftermarket quality has been improving, especially with this brand, which is Hipa products. Now, they sent me this kit to try out, so I did a little research on them. And if you look at the Amazon link below, you'll see that fewer people return these carbs than most other aftermarket carbs because they work and they're high quality. That's what Hipa stands for, is high quality parts. But for less than 20 bucks, you can get this whole kit and you don't need to worry about adjusting it or anything. It's just ready to go out of the box. Now this string trimmer here, the primer bulb is cracked and it needs a new bulb, and that's obviously one of the reasons it won't start. But I'm going to assume that if this is dry rotted and cracked, the chances are the diaphragms in here are probably not in the best shape either. So I'm just going to replace the whole carb, and you might as well just do that for the price. But first, let's assume you have some fresh gas oil mix in here, and I'm going to show you how to take out the spark arrestor screen and clean it. This is a culprit a lot of the time. Then I'll show you how to install this whole kit. So let's start by checking this spark arrestor. We'll see if it's clogged up. This is a 15mm socket to take this out. A deep socket is better if you have it. So it's not great. I've seen worse, but it's definitely a little bit gunked up. So when this gets gunked up, the machine can't get any air out of the muffler. So there's several ways you can clean this. You can clean it with a torch and just burn off the carbon buildup. You can soak it in gas overnight and scrape it off with a wire brush. I've done that before. Or you can just spray it with some carb cleaner. A lot of different ways, but getting this clean will definitely make it run better. And again, you can just try starting that with the screen removed, and that'll tell you if that's the problem or not. But again, just be careful. You might get some sparks flying out. Don't set anything on fire. So what are some signs that you might need to clean or replace your carb? Well, first of all, the string trimmer is old and crusty and you found it on the curb. Check. Probably a good chance it needs a new carb. Also, if you're having difficulty starting it or it's stalling a lot, especially when you turn the choke off, or it runs one day and not the next, or it bogs down when you throttle it, those are all good signs that the carb is gunked up. So first, let me show you how to replace the spark plug since the kit came with one. Then we'll get into how to replace the carb. So the first thing you're going to do is just pop off this rubber boot. Just kind of get that out of the way. So then to remove the spark plug, you can just use a spark plug wrench like this, or if you don't have one of those, you can just use a 19mm socket. Here's the new one it came with. If you have a tool like this, you should check the gap on your spark plug. It should be set to 20 thousandths. Then to install the spark plug, you always want to start it by hand, just to make sure you don't cross thread it. Get it to where it's tight and then just give it a slight turn. Okay, so now to replace the carb, first you're just going to open the air box, Then remove the lid. Then remove the air filter. Now to remove the back of the air box, you're going to need a couple 8mm sockets, and they need to be deep sockets that are pretty thin walled because these nuts are kind of tricky to get to. They're kind of recessed into that plastic housing. Now you can pull the back of the air box off these two bolts. So at this point, it's not a bad idea to take a picture of the old carb just so you can see which fuel line goes where and where the throttle cable goes and which way it sits. And then it's not a bad idea to drain the gas or at least open up the lid here so you don't get sprayed when you pop off these fuel lines. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the fuel lines off the carburetor. So then the last thing attached here is the throttle cable. You can see that moving up and down. So we're just going to slide the carb off, and then you just kind of slide down on that throttle cable and then slide it out of the slot. So here you can see the throttle cable in here. Just going to kind of push it down and out of that slot. And don't forget your old back gasket on here. Then we're going to remove the fuel lines. You got to get this grommet out of the fuel tank here. So you're going to pull that out, and out comes your fuel filter. I'm going to try to wipe this clean a little bit. Just don't knock any dirt into the fuel tank. So now we'll put the new fuel filter on the new fuel lines. Then we'll put that fuel filter down into the tank and get this grommet set into the fuel tank. Unstuck that lip a little bit. So then we'll put our new carb on by just doing things in reverse order. But first, make sure you put this back gasket on. Use the one with the little hole on the bottom that'll line up there. Then we'll attach the throttle cable. Just make sure you have that hole on the bottom so this can go in there. And then we're just going to thread it into that slot, just like that. Then we'll push the carb onto those bolts. Get your fuel lines out of the way. Throttle cable is attached. So the shorter fuel line attaches to the bottom port here. Then the longer fuel line goes to the top one. Going to put on the new front gasket on the front of the carb over these bolts. Then I'll put the back of the air box back on. Put the nuts back on. Put the new air filter in. Then reattach the lid to the air box. We'll put in some fresh fuel mix. Put the lid back on. Don't forget to put your spark arrestor back in if you took that out. Let's give it a prime. Let's see if she starts up. So hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, please hit the like button for me and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.